How's it, guys? Welcome to another installment of the PH Journals podcast. This one's a goodie. It's been it's still kind of in the show template and theme for the month of January and February, but this one gets a little bit more personal. So I'm excited to take you guys along for the ride. How's it, guys, and welcome to another installment of the PH Journals podcast. Like I said, this one is personal. This podcast this week, there's been a lot of controversy online from my good friend Wayne Dill and the guys at Salt Lake Outdoors about professional hunting. Now, for me, I've always said this, and I still truly and honestly believe it, that professional hunting is the frontline contact point from conservation as far as a hunting tool is utilized. I firmly believe, I've said this continuously on this podcast, that hunting is one of the greatest conservation tools we have to offer. And without professional hunting, without guiding, it's very difficult to see that model being sustainable. It is. And it's proven in the past. Sometimes we've had hunters many moons ago, back in the olden days when there weren't even black and white TVs. We've had guys come out and decimate massive populations of animals. And we've proven that by utilizing those same tactics as hunting, walking and stalking and physically actively hunting these animals for the same reason what they did, but adding value to the animal, well, now that's conservation. And I had a very interesting conversation with an ex-girlfriend of mine. She's very big into the conservation side of things as far as ranging and looking after national parks and all that sort of stuff. And she said hunting has become a necessary evil. And it's true. A lot of us, myself included, don't actually enjoy the kill. We enjoy the journey along the way, and we enjoy what fruits and benefits we get from these animals. But at the end of the day, it means that you would have to take an animal's life. And for some of us, that's a very difficult thing to fathom. And me as a professional hunter, I've seen death for a very, very long time. And I'll be honest with you, that sometimes it does get easy. Sometimes it gets hard. But understanding what we do this for, the bigger picture, is something very, very important. I believe every professional hunter should have instilled in their morals and values. So anyway, without tangenting off too long, I wanted to address the elephant in the room. I wanted to address what Wayne and Sean from Salt Lake Outdoors had a conversation about on their podcast. And I'm only going to view my personal opinion about the situation and what I took from it. Wayne said in the podcast that a lot of these discussions happen around the campfire. And those of you who haven't watched the podcast, for context, Wayne and Sean had a segment in the podcast where they debated, or they shared light or frustration on why the PH schools are delivering these mediocre professional hunters. I hope I'm wording it correctly. It wasn't exactly like that, but somewhere along those sort of lines. And we've always been saying that it's about time now that the professional hunting schools look at a longer system, look at a more in-depth system, because I am a product of the 10-day course. I am. But back then in 2008, I was 18 years old. I was one of the few that were allowed to do it because of the background I had. Went into the school, and I actually passed with flying colors. Now, the thing about it is that I have been hunting since I was 13 years old. Was I hunting it correctly? Most of the time, no. But most of the time, well, some of the good times that I really did, I latched onto. For instance, hunting oryx with Boise out in the back mountains over there, walking for 3 or 4 hours before actually seeing one. And then getting onto a herd and sitting extremely patiently while we monitored which were the older bulls to take. Those sort of things resonated with me as my career went on in the hunting industry. But here's the thing. So this is what I took from the podcast. And if Sean and Wayne listen to this podcast, I do apologize that I haven't worded it exactly how it was. But I encourage everyone to go and listen to the podcast. And that's the most important thing to say is actually go and listen to what they have to say and don't worry about all the shenanigans on the side and the comments that have been throwing around. Because a lot of it, I personally believe, is people that are being extremely sensitive to what was said. And I get it. I understand that, because the reason behind it is our industry is extremely volatile. We're always on the attack. Sorry, excuse me. We've always been attacked. So we're always in like this sort of kind of defensive mode about our industry. I've seen it personally firsthand about some of the things I've said. And I realized very, very quickly that we are extremely sensitive about negative things that get said in the industry, which is okay too. It's just that our defense is up. But what I took from it and what I've seen in the past is that there is without a doubt that South Africa is home to some of the most incredible professional hunters out there. And I speak for the vast majority of what I have seen. However, with every industry, you are going to get a few bad apples, a few young individuals that are going to be pressurized by the seniors or the above powers that be, outfitters and stuff, into doing the incorrect things. I was one of them. I'm a product of that. I was forced into positions that felt uncomfortable. I didn't want to do majority of the time. But I understood that if it wasn't done, you don't bring value to that company, and that company won't look at you any way further. I understood that. I understood that I was going to have to, at some point, sacrifice my morals and values and what I believed as a good professional hunter would have, because I learned from extremely talented. Wayne was one of them. I learned from extremely talented professional hunters. I really and truly did. I had the older generation that flew the flag, like Uncle Jerry Phillips, Ashley King, just to name a very few of them. Bruce Nyland, all of them. And I was very fortunate enough to learn some of the tricks of the trade and get my professional hunting status by listening, understanding, and working closely with them. For 2 years, I got my professional hunter status at the end of 2008. I played rugby for 2 years, but every single holiday I was on the back of that Land Cruiser, shadowing Bruce, shadowing Uncle Ash, shadowing Uncle Jerry Phillips. And just constantly looking out and trying to learn and be the best possible professional hunter I could. I don't want to discuss this topic too long because there is quite a nice structured podcast that I thought I would dive into, but I think this brings quite a large bit of context to the topic of discussion for today. And what I took from the podcast with Wayne and Sean was that the industry is being diluted. The industry is being, it's become too easy. Well, it hasn't become, but it is too easy now to become a professional hunter. And the reason for that is that there are more professional hunting schools that are putting up more amount of individuals. And there's been a lot of comments around this saying that, yeah, but the good professional hunters will only see it out for 10 years. But what scares me, and this is what I took from the podcast, is that the good professional hunters will see out 10 years, 100%. But they need the opportunity to get to 10 years. And with this dilution of young individual hunters that call themselves hunters, that have got eel practice, that are willing to take 800 Rand per day for day fees, that are willing to dilute themselves, devalues the industry in such a way that those very good professional hunters will get worked out the system because they aren't willing to lapse on their morals and values that they have built up. So I kind of sat in a very unique position when I listened to the podcast. I was like, I get what these guys are saying and I understand it. I've said it in the past as well. I think that we are just a little bit too sensitive about the industry as a whole. There are some, I mean, if you are a good professional hunter and you believe in your morals and values, that podcast shouldn't have offended you in any way. You should have looked at it as motivation that, wait, hang on, something is getting done for the industry. Because we would be stupidly naive to think that anyone launching a podcast of that magnitude with that controversial topic is doing it to poison the industry. I've known Wayne for a very, very long time, and I've met Sean once or twice, and I know those two individuals, they're not doing it for clickbait or any other. I know they're doing it because they believe that the systems that we have right now aren't quite cutting it for the good professional hunters. And they want to see a better way forward for the future of professional hunting. Nowhere along the lines that I ever think that they meant that professional hunters are bad and unqualified in South Africa and all this sort of stuff. I really just truly think that they highlighted an issue in the industry, and that issue is that it's too easy now for every young hunter to have a double cab pickup and get a Jack Russell and become a professional hunter, because it dilutes what being a professional hunter really matters about. And that's the hard truth of it all. And I hope I've made sense in trying to talk about this topic, because it's been on the tip of my tongue, and I don't like getting trapped into this, but I do go and read the comments, and I do get disheartened when I see guys that I've looked up to in the industry putting out these things where they were hurt about what was said and all this sort of stuff, when they too know how hard it took them to get to that point. I've got my own system. Wayne's got his system. Some of the top professional hunters in the industry, and I think of the likes of like Jason Stone, and he's got his system that's made him work and get that to that point. But we were also part of a system that were only, I think it was maybe 800 to 850 professional hunters back then registered. Now we're looking at a system where there's 1,500, I must get the latest stats, but it's about 1,500 to 1,800 registered professional hunters. And these guys are just registered. They might not even be doing, and this is where the thing comes in, is that these outfitters are happy. They say, okay, well, listen, the industry is so flooded at the moment. Are you prepared to come and work for me for $800 a day? And every young professional hunter, if he's stupid enough, he would say no. But I guarantee you 90% of them will say, yes, I'll do it for $800. I've had professional hunters contact me, young professional hunters that just want to hold a video camera. And I applaud them for doing that. And I don't blame the guys that are willing to take the 800 Rand day fee. I don't blame them, because it is difficult out there. And until you figure out what your system is, your recipe for success as a good professional hunter, you might be kicked out of the food chain before you get to that point. And that's the worrying factor. And I think that's what the whole point was about. So yeah, guys, it's not easy. And no industry should ever be easy. But for the most part, I think there's a lot of professional hunters out there that want to make it not easy. They don't want to make it easy, but they want to make it more elite, like it used to be back in the day. So that's just my 5 cents on the topic. You guys can go and watch the podcast and come up with your own perspective on it. But I do encourage you to listen to the podcast with an open mind and not just get flustered because of what's being said on social media, because I do think it gets taken out of context and twisted a lot. But with that being said, that's just my personal feel on how I took it. So yeah. So then, of course, and I think this topic might speak to clients and majority will be speaking to professional hunters, but I would like clients to really dive into this topic and understand that this topic was brought up because if you have a better understanding of what your professional hunter is going through, there's that communication, there's that preference of thought when you guys are out hunting. So if he is a bit off in the truck next to you, at least you'll have some sort of perspective on what's really going on. So the topic of discussion for this week's episode of the podcast, and I've gone on a 16-minute tangent on that last point, is the loneliness of being a professional hunter. So for me personally, and to start off with, at about 32 years old, my wife decided to leave me. And it wasn't due to, yes, I went through very difficult periods. I mean, you guys can imagine COVID was a truly game changer. And because we never had any work, we literally sat the day the borders shut on South Africa was the day I realized how vulnerable we really are as an industry. And things just didn't look up from there. And I wasn't in a greater space, and I'm not blaming anyone for what happened, but as professional hunters, we go through these things where your partner needs to understand she's going to be lonely, and you need to understand you're going to be lonely. But we see all this grip and grin and the sunset silhouettes and the handshakes, the lodge staff, the smiles behind the animal. It's so enticing to become a professional hunter, and the lifestyle is absolutely amazing. It really is. It's fun. You get to meet really cool people and tell stories and all that sort of stuff. And it's just, you get to do what you love. You get to hunt. You get to walk in the bush and be with nature and hone in on your skills as a hunter, stalking, bringing out that primal instinct. It is it's an extremely romantic perspective on what a job should really look like. But here's the truth. As professional hunters, we carry pressure. You've got expectations from the client, expectations from the outfitter. You have to deliver on what you have promised. You have to deliver on a service that is not always easy in the most difficult times. That night, everyone else went to bed. You stayed up, running through every decision in your head, planning the next day, writing out your pH register, making sure that your animals are tagged correctly. Wondering what the wind direction is going to be so that you could chase that specific kudu bull in the morning. Where's he going to be standing? Shot placement, strategy. Or maybe what you could have done differently the day before. Missed opportunities, bad positioning, bad stalking techniques. It all plays effect on your mental health and your mental resilience within the hunting industry because of the expectations that everyone. It's just part of the game. You have to understand that is not going away. It is just part of it. You have to be on all the time. This is one of the hardest, if not the hardest thing to do as a professional hunter. You might have a personality of hunter that clashes with you. You might not be the easiest guy, but you've always got to put a smile on. You've always got to make sure that he is the number one priority. You might not have a client that's a great shot, but you got to get him into better positions. You got to make sure that whatever is getting delivered out there, that you are 100% responsible for. If somebody starts mistreating cam staff, mistreating vehicles, bad-mouthing other professional hunters or other hunters, it becomes a testing time. It really does. But you're dealing with so many different personalities, you need to understand that you have got to step up to the plate. No matter what you believe, no matter how you perceive what is going on, you need to make sure that you represent yourself, the hunting industry, and your outfitter as best as you possibly can. But here's the truth of the whole thing. Sometimes I miss being the hunter, not the host, not the decision maker, just the guy behind the rifle, behind the bow, going out there and doing what you're extremely passionate to do. I think it's very, very fitting that professional hunters sacrifice that for others. And I think we need to understand what professional hunters go through mentally when it comes to that. Point number 3 is a big one, missing home. Sometimes you just need, as a professional hunter, to communicate this with your clients and just say, I need 10, 20 minutes. I want to call home. I want a video call home. I want to see how my daughter's doing. I want to talk to my wife. I want to find out if my dog's shitting on the lawn, or if the garden boy rocked up for work, or how's everything going? Is it raining? Is it not? I think those small breakdowns is just very, very important, because you do miss home, whether you like it or not. The craziest thing is, and this often happened in my life or in my career, is you're so surrounded by other people constantly, 24/7, from when you wake up to when you go to bed. But yet there are still moments in that chaos that you actually still feel alone. And it's crazy to think. So take a bit of time out for yourself and for your family, and make sure that you prioritize that even on the difficult days. Financial responsibilities and career uncertainties. You need to understand that this is going to be a massive financial undertaking. You are going to be in debt 90% of the time, because you're constantly fighting this battle of vehicle maintenance, rifle maintenance, just basic maintenance on everything else, constantly upgrading gear, constantly upgrading equipment, dog food, insurances, life policies, and just basic run-of-the-mill clothing, tires, stuff like that. It's a constant battle every single year. Sometimes you budget for it, and sometimes it doesn't happen according to budget, and you have to start forking out things. Stock markets might crash, policies might fall away, the dollar might weaken against the rand, and those hard-earned tips that you've got are becoming less and less valuable. So remember all of that. Take that into consideration, because you are going to go through that. There were often times I used to ask myself, is this even sustainable? Is this sustainable for my family? Because when life hits, when those unforeseen circumstances hit, they hit freaking hard, trust me. And sometimes when it's raining, it's pouring, and you just try and keep your head above water the whole time. Don't compare yourself on social media. Don't worry about what others are doing on social media that you can do differently. There's no point to it. Social media is an incredibly great tool to make everyone look like exceptional professional hunters. But if you as an individual have strong character, morals, values, you can put yourself ahead of anyone else out there. And it's important to understand. It's important to understand that you need to sometimes, or most of the time, actually back yourself for who you are. And this boils down into the initial conversation I had about the podcast with professional hunters, is that yes, majority of the professional hunters are very, very good out there because they believe in what they stand for, they believe in their morals, and they believe in their values. I did. I lost that path along the way for a very, very long time. But when reality hit me in the face, I realized very quickly that, wait, hang on here. I'm going to be fighting a losing battle. And I've worked so hard to build my name up, my reputation up. I don't want to go and lose it over a stupid decision. And I'm telling you guys right now, there are going to be situations in your career that you're going to have to make those difficult decisions. But back your gut feeling. And if your gut tells you don't do it, don't do it. Don't listen to your heart. Back your gut, because it knows what's best for you. Heart plays on the emotional side. Gut is reality. The more I build PH journals, the more I realize something. People connect to honesty and not perfection. There's a reason why I post every single day. There's a reason why I post some of the most ridiculous things every single day about my personal life. Number one, it helps me. I love journaling. I think it's a great tool to have conversations with yourself. But number two, I want people to know me for who I am and the honesty that sits behind me as a brand and as an individual. Because the two of them need to speak together. And that's a very important thing to understand. Because when people hire PH journals, I want them to hire the best version of me possible. The version that they see every single day. And yes, sometimes it's not easy. Every day it can't be as glamorous as what I make it out to be on social media. But sometimes I put that out there. I will say I have a struggling day. I will put inspirational voice over video. I do that because you do go through difficult days, and that's okay too. It's okay to be out in the bush with a client and you might be going through something. But if that client is sitting next to you in the truck and he understands the sacrifice that you've given up to make his experience possible, that might just be a beautiful connection of building past the clientele base and rather becoming friends. And that's something very, very important to keep in. In a nutshell, this career is a huge honor. Every single day you lace up your boots, you need to realize that you're going out there for a purpose that conservation is to be the winner at the end of the day. That is the most profound honor you can have. But it does require emotional maturity. It requires resilience. And it does require an identity outside of hunting. You are a host. You are you're a personal therapist. You're all these things. You're a guide. You're a psychologist. You're a medic. You're a negotiator. You're a conversation starter. You're a campfire entertainer. You're a waiter. You're all these different personalities when you're out there. And you need to understand that a lot of those personalities get built on outside of hunting. Let me try and make a statement here. If hunting is your only identity, I personally believe that the lonely seasons will absolutely break you. And we don't want that to happen. So build those personality barriers that you have and make sure that you're a strong individual when times are tough. It's not easy, guys. It really isn't. And this podcast is not designed to make anyone feel sorry for the poor little PH. That's not it. It's just to understand that these are real factors that go through, and not many guys, not many professional hunters are brave enough to highlight these sort of things and speak about them when they are on safari. But if you are watching this from a clientele perspective, have that perception on what your professional hunter might be going through. You might be lucky and you might string out on a bunch of safaris where your professional hunter never shows any sort of difficult moments. But there might be that one that you come across that things are just tough for that young man sitting next to you. So just understand that. I wouldn't trade this life for anything, but I also wouldn't like to romanticize it. Being a professional hunter is one of the greatest privileges in this world, and sometimes one of the loneliest. I want to close off by saying this. And I want to leave this with you guys. So I'm going to say my closing line. If you are, happy hunting. Until then, stay safe, stay blessed, stay humble. I'll catch up with you guys soon. But before I leave you, is something I just wanted to leave with you guys as a lasting remember. If you're a young professional hunter listening to this, build more than just your shooting skills. Build resilience, build character, and most importantly, build relationships outside of the bush.